welcome to Labour Lenta. I am Sharon Ijason. On this week edition of the program, we will be focusing on the proposed mass protest which will take place across the country over the government's proposed increase in fuel pump price. We will be right back.
Over the years, industrial actions have been the weapon used by many labor unions to achieve their demands. Only recently, resident doctors embarked on a national strike that lasted for over 3 months. That is about to change as the House of Representatives is currently working on a bill that will prohibit strikes among health workers as providers of essential services. The National Association of Resident Doctors and the Joint Health Sector Union have reacted separately to the proposed law and affirmed their opposition to it. They described the bill as draconian and an assault on the democratic rights of the workers.
And we have had so many progressive lawmakers that have actually said, no, we are not aware. And
now the NLC president is adding his voice to the wave of opposition that has greeted the legislative endeavor. He says by ILO conventions and treaties to which Nigeria is a signatory, only air traffic controllers are assumed to be essential service providers.
And then it's laughable for anybody to think otherwise, to try to gag those workers from exercising the right that is fundamental. And I can say clearly that it's only in rare circumstances that actually the health sector entirety will actually go into strike. And there are provisions for mediation, conciliation, and arbitration, which also have been followed from time immemorial.
He says Labour will engage the legislative process to ensure such a law does not sail through.
Even when the National Assembly make laws, and those laws are contrary to the provision of the principles of freedom of association, the ILO have always requested the government to amend those laws to conform with the principles of freedom of association.
He wants the National Assembly to keep itself busy with more rewarding legislative exercises that will impact on those they represent.
We are going to engage the process. It's unfortunate. I think there are many things that they need to do law to do, not to actually undermine the right of workers. There are many things. Poverty is everywhere, and I think where you have poverty everywhere is a threat also to prosperity everywhere.
The bill in contention aims to amend the Trade Disputes Act 2004 to prohibit medical practitioners in the employment of federal, state and local governments in the essential service sectors from embarking on strikes.
The Nigerian Labour Congress has written to the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, and the leadership of the 2 chambers of the National Assembly, pleading that the government should suspend the implementation of the excise duties on non-alcoholic, carbonated and sugary drinks. The Congress stated in a signed press release that the reintroduction of excise duties on non-alcoholic, carbonated and sugary drinks will impose immense hardship on ordinary Nigerians who easily keep hunger at bay with a bottle of soft drink and maybe a loaf of bread. NLC President Ayuba Waba believes it will increase the number of mass hunger that would result from the slightest increase in the retail price of soft drinks owing to imposition of excise duties, as it would be priced beyond the reach of many Nigerians.
Yeah, 2022, and workers in Nigeria are full of hope. There are a lot of expectations, like you said, from the government. It is quite unfortunate that at this point in time in our life, whereby the economic situation is so down, people are so hungry, people's wages are not taking them home. It's not a living wage that a government will be thinking of hiking or increasing the pump price.
The present administration have just 15 months or less to the end of this tenure. And I'm not expecting a carryover of last year into 2022. I expect a lot of things to change. Minimum wage they need to look at it again, because it cannot be introducing taxes here and there, and the minimum wage is still what is 30,000, for instance, and you're introducing taxes here and there, and you're planning to hike the pump price. So when you do all these things, you don't expect the people to be happy. Make Nigerians happy, prepare a very good farewell package for them as we prepare to exit.
The Organized Labor Civil Society Organizations, CSOs and Public Service International, PSI, have rejected federal and state government's planned privatization of potable water supply in the country. National Union of Electricity Employees (NUI), Amalgamated Union of Public Corporations, Civil Service, Technical and Recreational Service Employees, Corporate Accountability and Public Participation Africa, and PSI, an umbrella body for public service sector unions across the globe, rallied Nigerians to oppose the National Water Bill, claiming that the bill is anti-people and will make potable water inaccessible to most Nigerians.
The government has been coming into the water sector vis-a-vis trying to privatize the sector. And I believe that if that is the way the government has chosen to go, that's not going to be favorable to the nation, especially the workers who are in such sector. So I believe that that is not a good way to go. Instead of privatizing the industry, they should look for a better method of approaches in terms of trying to find a way where government can partner with the public sector. If possible, they can commercialize it, allow the water utility from the government to remain, rather than privatizing it and giving it to an individual who can manage it. Of course, privatization in Nigeria has not and will never, favor even the government, even the populace. Then the workers also who are the receiving end will find it very difficult to cope with it because it's going to involve job loss and it's going to even involve inefficiency in terms of the productivity output of that sector. So government should look in a different direction to see how it can solve the issue of water shortage in the country. Privatization of water utility is not the best option for now, considering what we have passed through in the electricity sector.
Public-private participation was recommended as access to safe and adequate water as crucial to the quality of life of the citizenry, as privatization will price water above the reach of the poor. Privatization, according to labor leaders, will lead to job losses to privatizers who are only interested in maximizing profits.
We have seen series of government partnering with some other international agencies. For instance, in Bauchi State, they give it a name they call corporatization. And you will see series of names: privatization, subletting, corporatization, concessioning, and all that. But for whatever name they give it, it can never be like public-public partnership. Because whatever they are doing, when they even bring money from their so-called country in form of aid, nobody give you a free money. By the time you take that money, there is something they are demanding at the end of the day. Everything may look free. And they will give you a bulky document that relates to a kind of MOU. But there is something that is embedded in those documents. And in Nigeria, we don't have this reading culture to read through the lines and see exactly what are the content of that document. By the time you look in properly, you will find out that some things that are embedded there, that is their interest. And by the time you sign this document, you are off the line. So for us in Opta and our partners, we are not in support of the system government want to use because it's going to be to their advantage.
Civil society groups urged Nigerians to join forces to stop both the federal and state government from privatizing water supply, warning that it will worsen the poverty level across the country, as boreholes in homes will be taxed by the government once the national water bill sailed through.
On the profile interview segment this week, I will be speaking with the national president of SBF, who also doubles as the deputy president of Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, TUC, Comrade Oyinkansola Olasanoye. She brought us up to speed about some of the challenges workers are faced with and provide solutions to some of these challenges, especially that of the increase in prices of goods and services, which many Nigerians have been faced with for a while. It's good to have you on the program.
Good afternoon.
And it's a happy new year.
Yeah, happy new year, and I wish you a very prosperous new year.
Okay, so what will be your expectations for the year 2022 for your members and for Nigerians at large, and perhaps what you'll be expecting from government?
For 2022, I'm expecting a better future for Nigerians. I'm expecting a better financial commitments. I want government to be able to do some basic things that makes life worthwhile for Nigerians. For my member, I believe, I trust them, that there will be better productivity. And I know that our management are that good, that they are going to increase our source of income based on the productivity.
Okay, looking at the current situation we find ourselves today in the country, top on the list, or one of the biggest expectation an average worker has right now is the planned protest as regards the proposed increase in fuel price of petroleum. Should we be expecting some of our members to join this protest?
Thank you. You know, we are affiliated to a labor center, and whatever is the decision of our labor center, definitely we will join.
But looking at the current situation we find ourselves in, do you think going on a protest is what is the next thing that needs to be done for probably the government to listen? Or would you even say that at one point or the other, if government ever consulted labor before coming up with this proposal?
What that bothers me about this situation is this. Government is really gradually making labor to lose their respect and their influence in the society. Government have been part of the panel that have been meeting government on the salary, on the petroleum subsidy removal increase, and the electricity. I'm aware, and because I'm part of the panel, that labor raised so many issues that even if we are going to, definitely we agree on this subsidy removal because it has served like a scam. We agree that there should be a refinery. We cannot be importing a product we are producing. There should be a lot of modular refineries that can meet the consumption expectation of Nigerians. And if you are aware of reason, there have been a lot of news about toxic petroleum product being exported into Nigeria by some institutions. So we felt that all these things that labor demanded from government have not put it in place. Now government is going about to form a sort of blackmailing labor, because Nigeria will feel that it's a scam, that labor did not really, they already have an agreement because they have been discussing with government. But this government, most of the time, they are good at discussing, but they don't follow advice. They don't implement agreement. They do things. So at times I wonder, why do you call us to a meeting when we bring a better solution, a solution that is workable, that you don't accept, you didn't implement, you still decide to go about your own, that there are evidence that it will not work, that is going to fail. So if Labour decide this time around to go out on a protest, it's a welcome development, because it will that way Labour will be able to tell Nigerians this is an alternate route we can go through. It's not the subsidy removal for me that is the issue, but what are the things government have put in place to make sure that we have. For example, government is saying that they want to give some few Nigerians 5,000 naira each as a subsidy for transportation. And if you had what they want to pay as a subsidy together, it amounts to the same amount they are removing. Don't forget that this same government, they have some palliative during the COVID that doesn't get to these Nigerians. So at times, the program they come about, we keep on talking about policy somersault. The programs, the decisions they come about are decisions that at long run doesn't fulfill the reason they are bringing it out. So as at present, yes, I know Nigerian Labour Congress have talked about coming up on the 27th. On the 7th of this month, and I know we work together when we need to work together. And for the spirit of solidarity, we have not really met to take a decision on that. But the moment the decision is taken, our Nigerian workers in our sectors will be informed and they will know what to do.
Okay, moving forward, last year, that is the year 2021, if I'm correct, Nigerians experienced at least 3 times inflation in commodities of goods or services that they would want to receive. As the president of ASBV, can you bring us up to speed on some of the workable solutions that might be needed to ensure that maybe we would overcome this reoccurring inflation crisis that we've been facing recently?
As at present, the interest rate in banks will not encourage anybody to take loan. The condition attached to it are conditions that is a bit tough for majority of Nigerians to be able to get those loans. And that's why most of the time, those that are able to take loans, some of them don't pay back. So it makes the banks to still have all these tough conditions. But where I'm going to is this. We import most of the things we consume. We don't have institutions or factories that are working. We don't have opportunity, conditions that make people that want to go into production to be able to go to it at profit-making level. And the exchange rate is fantastically high. Then there is nothing we can do that inflation will not be in Nigeria. Because everything we are consuming, we are importing. And importation is based on the exchange rate that we have little or no control over. What we import, when $1 was 300, is still the same thing we are consuming. Now that is almost 600. So it means everything is ×2, which is an inflationary trail. Then also, if we want to stop all this high inflation, we should be able to have organizations and companies that are producing. We need to reduce our expectation and our reliance on importation of things. Nigeria is so blessed that we need to even be exporters. We have so many countries surrounding us that we should be able to import things, to export things to. And don't forget that what God has granted Nigeria as our advantage is gradually being turned to a disadvantage, and that is our population. We have the number of people to consume this food. Until government consider that there should be more production in Nigeria, which will help us in so many areas. It will help us in their employment generation. It will even help us in curbing the present insecurity in the country. Because majority of the people going into this insecurity are people that need something to survive on. So inflation, everything intertwined together, that we need one to be able to resolve so many. So for my sector, there's nothing any sector can do until our financial policy, our monetary policy is get right to put into consideration that as long as we are importing, that our expectation, our consumption is based on exporting, we keep on having problem in the country.
Okay, which moves us to the issue of national minimum wage. Right now, as we speak, one of the most consumed staple of food for us Nigerians is rice. A bag of it is 30,000 naira, which is just the minimum wage. And still, we have some state governments that are paying fragmented salaries, and some have not even measured up to the 30,000 naira as minimum, which means that the consequential that's supposed to arise in adjustment of the salary has not happened in some states across the country. With this inflation that Nigerians have been faced with for about a year or two, what do you think needs to be done? What would be your message to this set of people?
What can be an acceptable minimum wage in Nigeria? When the minimum wage currently is 30,000, at least half of the states of Federal Republic of Nigeria are not paying. A bag of rice is 30,000. We have not considered the cost of electricity. We have not considered the cost of transportation. We have not considered the cost of medical facilities, because most of our hospitals are not working. We have not considered the cost of education for our youth, because most of our schools doesn't have the necessary and the adequate equipment and things that makes it a learning facility. So which means that majority of the parents that are earning this minimum wage of 30,000, they have to put their children, their wards in private institutions. They have to attend private hospitals when they are ill. They have to source for their home water. They have to source for their own transportation. They have to source for their own food. So there is no minimum wage that is acceptable in Nigeria based on 30,000. If we need a minimum wage in Nigeria, it will go as high as 200,000. But I'm not an advocate of having a very high minimum wage in Nigeria that cannot consume, that cannot purchase, that doesn't have power of purchasing things. I want a minimum wage, but the necessary things like good education, necessary affordable electricity. You know the cost of diesel now. Majority of Nigerians are on a generator. I want a situation that we have electricity, that those informal sector workers, those that are in the barbing salons, those that are in the hairdressing salon, that they can work using this facility to produce. I want a situation they can send their children to a government schools that they don't need to pay out of their salary. I want a situation that our public and general hospitals are working, that we don't need to start going outside the country when we have one issue or the other. Then 30,000 can go for minimum wage. And for the states that are not paying minimum wage, that are still underpaying, I think it is high time that our governments, our leaders should have a rethink and consider and let their patriotism about Nigeria be something that all Nigerians are proud of. We don't need to beg them to be able to pay salary. Even our spiritual books, the Bible, the Quran says that those that work deserve their minimum wage. And I think it is high time our leaders work on this area.
COVID-19 pandemic is still ravaging the world. Nigeria is not an exception to this. From research, it states that additional 10.9 million people in Nigeria would be added to the poverty line, meaning that we have more people that will get hungry. Looking at it from the corporate side, what would be your opinion as regards how corporate organizations or private companies have been able to manage COVID-19 pandemic vis-a-vis workers' welfare, workers' relationship, and what is expected from workers?
Thank you. You know, with the COVID-19 pandemic, majority of the institutions have to adopt a situation that some of the workers work from home. This have definitely affected even at our salaries, because working from home, you will need a lot of things that are not in place. You know, when you work in an office, the institution will have provided the powering, the electricity, the internet, the network. But some of us live outside the urban areas where these facilities are not acceptable, it's not available. There are some protective gadgets that most of these institutions are supposed to provide. But because they too are also being affected, they can't provide it. It means Nigerian workers have been providing this. Everybody have now seen it as a norm that we need to protect ourselves. We need to put in extra things to get ourselves protected. And I won't advise Nigerian government to go down to another lockdown, because majority of Nigerians are working in the formal sector. Any lockdown now will lead not even the percentage that is being said in the research, more than that will go back. So if this set of people are still at home due to the pandemic, and there is no palliative measure coming from government that is available, that is visible, and this sector, don't forget that Nigerian economy is a dependence economy. Once one person is working, about 2-3 people, we have this family norm, we rely on that person. So definitely, if we can't manage the COVID-19 well now, it means that not only that percentage, more Nigerians will go back into poverty. So I want to seize the opportunity and ask Nigerians and almost all workers that it means that we should take the battle of the government now and take it upon ourselves.
Finally, the issue of casualization has been a big problem in Nigeria, especially in the private sector. As part of the committee that is looking into the review of Nigerian labor laws, can you bring us up to speed on what Nigerian workers should be expecting, especially your members that are in the private sector? What should be their expectation as regards casualization of workers in the country? My
sincere prayer is that the current review of the Nigerian Labour Act there should be a conclusion. Yes, in December there was a review, and right there between the employer, the employee, which is the labor and government, we have been able to realize that there are some things we need to do for Nigerian workers There are some things we need to do about occupational health hazard. There are some improvement we also need to put in place concerning casual workers. All this we have agreed, we have put together. So this law now needs to go to the National Assembly there should be a public hearing and become a law. As at present, it's just like a review that has not become a law. And the earlier this become a law, Nigerian workers will be at peace, because there have been there has been so many initiatives and noble things that have been put into casualization. As a present, casual workers in Nigeria are on the same salary, even if you have been a casual worker for 100 years. The condition of service does not dignify them as Nigerian workers. There have been things that have been put in place to correct all this. We should continue that speed so that quickly it can become a law. And I know Nigerian workers, the moment this becomes a law, there will be peace, there will be solution to the issues of casualization in the country.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
And that's all we can take on today's edition of the program. Join us next week for a fresh edition of the show. I am Sharon Ijason. Thanks for watching, and remember that labor creates wealth.